Boop. Happy Wednesday. Today is Wednesday, February the 23rd, 2022. And today's daily Bible readings come to us from Psalm 38, Leviticus 5, 1 through 13, and then Luke 17, 1 through 4. And I'm going to take a look at Leviticus because, hey, Leviticus, you can never get enough of Leviticus. And I'm going to talk about ignorance and knowing and why that's important because it's important because sin and guilt. And that's what Leviticus is taking great pains to do, is to let people know, okay, these are the things that God has said you really shouldn't be up to and you really shouldn't be doing, and these are the things you should be doing. And then if you do the things that you shouldn't be doing, if you did the thing that you shouldn't have done, you need to do this in return. And this goes into sacrifices of atonement, how to atone for the sins you've committed. But like I said, part of this is all about knowledge and knowing what you've done. And it's, knowledge plays a role in guilt. Knowing the truth about a public matter, for instance, say somebody's being brought up on false charges, or somebody is, lying about a contract, or that they've failed, they're part in a covenant or something, and they're saying, "Oh no, I never made that promise to them," and you know the truth, or somebody saying, "Oh, this person is guilty of this," and you know the truth. If you have that knowledge and you don't intercede and you don't speak up, God says, you bear guilt for that. So you should be a good person, and you should stick up for people in those cases, or you should speak the truth. And then uh, he says also that he understands that you could even possibly sin without knowing you really did it. And that's, sometimes we do that because we go through life and we're not the best at paying attention, and sometimes we do things and we didn't even realize we did it. And he says, so you might even sin or take on uncleanness. You didn't even know you came in contact with something that was like ritually impure, because they were really big on that. But he says, when you do know that, when you come to know what you've done or what you've contacted, you bear the guilt of it, because it's up to you then, and you have a responsibility then to do something about that. To atone for that which has been done. And not atonement, it's not in the sense of undoing it. Like this idea of these sacrifices for atonement, it's not like they make it as if it never happened. It still happened. You still did it. But it's the sense of showing your remorse and your intention not to be guilty of sin, your intention not to be that person, right? You even if you knew you did it, and it's just the idea of like saying, realizing that you really did mess up and you really did something you shouldn't, and realizing that that's not the person you want to be, and doing something to show that. And that's what's going on in here. It's the sense of showing your remorse and your intention to not be guilty of sin anymore. That's what this atonement means. It shows your desire to be forgiven. And that's kind of the whole point. That's really the big takeaway of this section, is that God wants to forgive. He's bending over backwards to forgive, to provide people a way to atone for their sins so that they can be in relationship with him. But the atonement has a cost, right? And in this system, there's, he starts off with like, okay, once you've realized your guilt and you want to make amends for it, you want to atone for it, you want to approach me and ask me for forgiveness, this is what you're going to have to do. And the first thing he says is, you shall bring to the Lord as your penalty for the sin that you have committed a female from the flock, a sheep or a goat, as a sin offering, and the priest shall make atonement on your behalf for sin. And we've talked about this before, like when Jesus' parents brought him, to present him at the temple, and they brought a sacrifice, right, to because of the ritual impurity that's involved in giving birth. And we talked about how in Leviticus there's a prescribed sacrifice for that, which is pretty much like this, and that's an expensive sacrifice. But what did Mary and Joseph bring? They brought 2 turtle doves. And so that's the next thing we see here, is that God's point in doing all this is to forgive, right? It's not just because he loves barbecue that much. It's not just because he really wants some roasted goat. Boy, it's he wants to provide a way for people to approach him, but he also wants it to, I guess, have an expense to it, a cost to it. But he doesn't want that to get in the way. So if somebody there's no way they'll ever be able to afford that, he provides these other ways. He says, but if you can't afford a sheep, you shall bring to the Lord as your penalty for the sin that you have committed 2 turtle doves or 2 pigeons. And thereon, and then he even goes this, like, because he knows that there's some people that aren't going to be able to afford those. So he goes, bring me some flour. I don't know. Maybe he's going to use like the pigeons and make chicken and dumplings. I don't know. But he says, if you can't afford even the pigeons, just bring me a cup of flour. Just bring me some flour. Just go through the motions. Because his point is to forgive. He's in it for the forgiveness. He doesn't want cost to stand in the way. So he provides this sliding scale of doves and pigeons, flowers. Hold the oil. So if you do this, if you don't put oil on it and don't put incense on it, just the flour, that's enough, thank you. Because God wants to forgive at all costs, and he's willing to take the cost on himself. So that's something you know now.